Looks like we got a new dungeon in these here parts. Hello everyone, Bront CatHerder here, and we're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we have a new event dungeon featuring Odin as the boss. He is a champion you can actually get from shards. He's available in voids. He is very similar as a boss as to he is to a champion, which spells well for him actually being a useful champion. He's pretty tough. But as a boss, he's a little different. There's definitely some thought that should go involved into farming this dungeon, but there's some pretty cool stuff you can get from this dungeon. So let's go take a look and see what we're getting. So the important part here is we can get pinpoint gear from this dungeon. Pinpoint gear can come in accessories and as regular gear, and it is a 9-piece set. So let's go take a look and see what the 9-piece set does first, because why would you want to farm for pinpoint? So this is what pinpoint gear does, is it gives you some amount of accuracy, as much as 60 points of accuracy, as much as 32 points of speed, and several stacks of intercept. While this doesn't seem super exciting, because you can actually get more accuracy out of a perception set, and you can get about the same amount of speed of a perception set, although at the 5-piece bonus, you're starting to kind of outclass the speed. What it's useful for is in PvP, where this prevents you from being stunned, it prevents you from being sheeped, and honestly, there's some PvE content where preventing yourself from being stunned or otherwise locked out, the intercept stacks could be very useful as well. The other thing that this is very useful for is, since some of these can be accessories, if you're struggling to get accuracy numbers on champions in PvE, being able to put 1 or 2 or even 3 points of pinpoint on that champion might be the 40 points of accuracy, and honestly 10 points of speed from doing accessory sets is pretty good as well. So is it an amazing set? It's not. Well, it's probably one of the best PvP sets that we've now have gotten for some of your debuffers, and should change the PvP meta quite a bit if you're a PvP champion. If you're a PvP person, yeah, it's okay. It's not bad. It's limited, but it's got some use, but it's not so powerful that you necessarily have to fall over yourself trying to get a team ready for this. But I still think that this dungeon's worth farming. The gear is pretty good. The gear is honestly better than farming a lot of the other dungeons anyway at the moment, because Pinpoint's actually pretty decent. It's a usable set. It's better than a lot of the stuff you can get from normal dungeons right now. And as a 9-piece set, it's kind of nice to have some of this stuff around in case you decide you might need some of it later. So let's go take a look at Odin, and let's go take a look at some of the teams that you need to beat him. All right, I'm not going to go deep into his kit, but I want to show a little bit of what he does and then mention the champions he's got with him as well. He's got this A1 attack that causes Berserk. Berserk increases the damage your champion does by 50%, but it also increases the damage they take by 50%. So it's kind of a hit or miss buff as far as how good it is, but obviously you've got a lot less HP than they do. So taking 50% more damage from people is bad. So definitely keep an eye on that. He's got a buff strip that does a decreased defense and a stun. This is kind of the one he leads off with. This is rough because he's got a lot of accuracy. He's got like 700 and some odd accuracy. So you need a lot of, maybe it's 600 and something. You need at least 750 resistance really to reliably resist some of this stuff. It's around that number. He's also at 275 speed on stage 30 at least, so that's worth noting. And then he's got this one here that attacks one enemy, does a bunch of damage based off of what type of damage they are, ignores defense, and if it kills somebody, has a chance of reviving a dead ally. This is problematic because if he kills somebody and starts reviving his team, which he actually has a team, that's a bit of a problem. The rest of this stuff, this is the other one that's important. Every 9 turns, and that's not 9 his turns, that's just 9 turns, he puts block damage buff on himself and then spreads it to everyone else. So one of the things you need on this is you need some way to strip buffs, or you need some way to put block buffs on there. So there's a couple champions that can do that well. Ugo is a really good one. You can certainly use Lydia. Lydia will target him first, so that's good. You can certainly use strippers like Seer or the Monkey King. There's all kinds of ways that you can deal with that, but dealing with the block damage is going to be one of your tougher challenges. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because it doesn't have to be perfectly tuned, but if you can generally keep it off of him at least half the time, you can usually whittle him down pretty easily. The rest of this stuff is standard fare for bosses. Awakenings do less to him. The other thing of note is he has 2 awakenings. He has Lightning Cage, so he can prevent himself from getting buffs stripped. So that could be problematic as well. That's definitely frustrating. That's part of why block debuffs is actually a better way to go, or block buffs, I should say. But he also has Temporal Chains, which means the more buffs you have on your champions, the slower they will go. On top of that, he's also got a Valkyrie on the team. So Valkyrie will, as you buff yourself, slow down your team as well, speed herself up a little bit. So Valkyrie can be very disruptive to fight. So I've got a couple teams here. I'm not going to take credit for all of these here. This team here is one that Boozer, content creator, I'll drop a link to his video down below. He dropped this one. I've made a couple changes to it as far as what works with it, and I can tell you some of the champions that you can kind of swap out in it as well. But this one worked very well for me, and we'll go take a look at the team setup, and then we'll talk about some of the replacements. All right, so we've got Padraig doing his boost first and his boost often, and that's just to make sure that people go as often as possible, and that's very important. You can actually use somebody like Arbiter for this. You could probably use somebody like Deacon for this. Deacon's got the better aura than Arbiter. Arbiter has a better speed boost. A Siphi might be okay, but Siphi brings an awful lot of extra buffs, so that could be a problem. There's a couple different options. Generally, you're looking for a fast speed boosting champion to bring everybody else up. And if you can get a speed aura as well, that helps a ton. Lydia here is, Lydia's been cursed, but it's nothing super special. You want to lead off with the Siren's Wail because you want to get that decreased defense and weaken out there, because the idea of this team is to blow away all or most of the heroes that are around Odin and then just kind of whittle Odin down from there. However, once you've gotten most of them down, you actually want to focus on this nullification because that will get the block buffs out more often. And the reason it makes a difference as to which one of these you prioritize is Padraig has a random chance of going over here, of dropping the cooldown on a random ally skill. So if for some reason he drops that skill on Lydia early, you want her to use it ASAP because you want to keep that not only off cooldown, but you want to get the block debuffs out there as much as possible, because every 9 turns any champion takes, he's going to get that block damage. So that can really slow you down. Mithrala is there mostly for a cleanse. Ideally, your Mithrala has enough resistance to be able to resist the boss because her accuracy folds into her resistance. She needs to be one of the fastest champions on your team, and she's going to start off with her A1 simply because what we want her to do is we want her to possibly cleanse if everyone is debuffed. And if everyone is not debuffed, we're going to want this Hex out there. The advantage of this Hex is this Hex will also help control some of the other champions, because if they get a chance to attack, they can get petrified. It also adds some additional damage when Seer tries to kill them. Seer, this is one of the ones that was very, very important. These speeds are good for 30. But Seer actually does need to be faster than about 242. I had her less than 242 and found that the team would fail occasionally. So faster than 242 helps a lot. Mine is in Cruel and Lethal, or at least Cruel and Savage. So she's ignoring a ton of defense. She's got the Execution, so she's got a bunch of extra crit damage. So she's got her 320 crit damage. She's got a 6-star blessing. If you don't have this, you might be struggling to gear some of this stuff anyway. That's fine. This team should scale down at slower speeds a little lower. Again, 245 was good for her, particularly with Padraig. If you don't have a Padraig or a speed lead, you might need a little more speed. Ideally, you want her to go before Odin and the other team goes. And then finally, Newt here. Newt is great for his max HP hits. He's a boss killer. You can also use Ninja, which you should have because Ninja was just given away for free. There are plenty of other champions you can use. Other max HP champions may work. If you got an Acresia may be good or just as good as Newt, maybe even better. Newt brings a bunch of other stuff as well because he's got the turn meter decrease and he's got the decreased defense on his Blessed Bash as well. But overall, Any damage dealer in this spot is fine. Max HPs are probably going to be better, and Ninja, of course, is kind of a max HP champion with his burn activation. So for this team, that's how this runs. Let's go walk through a run quickly and see how it works. It does have a bit of a variable time. I've had this run as fast as a 1 minute and a half team. I have also had this take 3 or 4 minutes because I just got unlucky with how often I was not landing block buffs and getting attacks off. So let's go take a look. And as I mentioned before, you can certainly swap Sova. Padraig is a speed lead, so you certainly need that. Mithrala is great, but you can honestly deal with just about any cleanser, so an Elva might be an okay option, although Elva is going to bring you some additional buffs. There's all kinds of different cleansers that will work just fine for that. It kind of helps that Padraig also has a cleanse, but with Mithrala and Padraig, you generally have a cleanse readily available most of the time, and Mithrala is going to be 10 not to stand. So we've gotten fairly lucky here. We just got the block damage, as you see, and we don't have a block debuffs. So we mostly just kind of have to wait until that either wears off when he takes his next turn, or we're going to wait until Lydia hopefully lands a is she going to land it? Nope, she rather used the wrong skill. So we don't have the block buffs, and here he's got it up again. And this is really the problem with this, is getting this timed right. The advantage of this team is now that we've killed all of his other supports, the only person that's doing any damage is Odin, and fortunately we've got some healing with Padraig and some other tank ability with both the shield and then some shields from Mithrala and strengthen out there a couple champions and a lot of speed that we get some healing out there, and we should be good to go with keeping everybody alive. You see Newt's actually healed when he wasn't beforehand. And so we're really just at this point in time waiting to make sure that we can get a hit on Odin while he doesn't have his block damage. And to be fair, some of the stuns don't really help because he's going to get a turn at some point. So there we go. Minute 30. Best time in minute 7 on this one. I'm not running this on unlimited frames at the moment, so there we go. Now let's go take a look at another team. This team I was not able to get at stage 30, but I know this team can work, and we'll talk about some other teams as well. But again, Seer is really kind of the big key for this. Lydia is great with Seer because she gives you the buffs. You can certainly use a Venus instead of a Lydia, and that will add some burns as well, but you're going to lose out a little bit on doing damage from Seer's nuke. So that's going to be a problem. And again, Ninja works just as well as Newt. Maybe a little better, maybe a little worse, because especially if you've got him in Relentless, it's kind of nice to have a Relentless champion that's going to taking some turns. So here's one of the other teams. This is pretty close to what I was climbing with. I got some other hints from a couple of other content creators, and overall I like this. The champions here can be pretty flexible. Ancora is great because Ancora has a revive and a cleanse, but again, this could be a Mithrala if you're looking for a free champion. Ancora was pretty recent. You could certainly try an Elva for this as well. Depending on how fast she is, if she's faster than the boss, you need to make sure that her A1 is the lead and then her cleanse is the second skill. If it's not faster than the boss, then you're going to want to lead with the cleanse because you're going to want to cleanse off the stuns. It helps to have her in Stone Skin. The Stone Skin may actually get removed anyway, but again, if you have high resistance, it's less of a problem. And then on top of that, you see to get there without the stun. And Korra is nice because even if she gets stunned, because everything else fails, she's got her passive, well, she'll kick her turn meter up 50% more, and then she can do the cleanse afterwards. So she may actually still lap people for the cleanse. Venus is great. Venus is a little better in this team versus Lydia because she doesn't do the buffs, so you don't have the temporal chains causing problems with the buffs. You also have burns that you can put out there instead, so that's very helpful with an R-Tac, which we have here. You've got the blind with infatuation, which is the decreased defense and weaken, and she can even put up some poisons, which can help her do a bunch of damage. Ninja's Ninja. The one thing I like doing with Ninja is lead with his Scion Slash. So we lead with his Scion Slash, and he stuns and basically locks out a bunch of the champions. So what can happen then is then R-Tac and Venus can get some burns out, and then you can go from there. This is my R-Tac, and this is kind of why I struggled on 30. My R-Tac's accuracy is not high enough to land debuffs on stage 30. So we're on stage 25 with this team here, just to show that this team can still work. The difference between 25 and 30 is honestly maybe 50 to 100 accuracy. The problem is that I use my R-Tac to solo Ice Golem, so I don't want to rebuild him to a point where he won't be able to solo Ice Golem anymore, and getting that additional accuracy would probably require that because I'd probably have to drop my HP. I could certainly try it, but I figured I'd show you some of these stats and just let you know that, hey, some of us endgame champions or endgame players, yeah. And just to let you guys know that some of us endgame players are still struggling with this dungeon. It's not just like we've got accounts to roll over this stuff. It takes some work to get some of this stuff done. Finally, Sun Wukong is great because Sun Wukong has a buff strip with block buffs. So this is one of the best ones you can get from this. However, if you don't have a Sun Wukong for some reason, I know he was a free champion for a long time. If you don't have a Sun Wukong, you can use anybody that strips or anybody that places block buffs. So a Ugo, for example, would be a very usable champion for this. Again, this is where a Lydia could be helpful because Lydia does have the block buff, even if it's a single target. If you simply don't let Odin get the block damage, then nobody else gets it either. So that's kind of nice. But honestly, Sun Wukong is probably one of the best for this. He can be super squishy. You can build him for damage, and mine happens to be built for damage for Arena. If he's not built for damage, and to be fair, I can simply just replace his chest with an accuracy chest, and he'll probably then have enough accuracy to do this. But without that accuracy boost, I don't have enough accuracy to run 30 with this team, which is why I was struggling with this team. But without that problem, it works pretty well. So we're running on 25. Let's go take a look and see how this works. This basically works by having Artek activate the burns to burn down everybody. If you're having trouble staying alive, you can replace Ninja with another champion that will help keep everyone alive. You could also certainly throw a Seer in here instead of Ninja and just kind of hope that you can nuke everybody down, and then Artek kind of just takes care of the boss with some of the burn activation. But honestly, some of the extra damage you're going to get from having the other champions alive will make the burns worth it. So let's go take a look at this and see how this one runs. Okay, so this may not be tuned quite right because I think Ancora may be too fast on 25, so she did her cleanse right there, which is annoying, but fine. We'll live without the stuns. So mostly we're just hoping that all these burns are going to be activated and keep everyone down. And we've lost the Monkey King, which is certainly annoying, but the Monkey King does bring himself back, which is one of the reasons he's actually really good for this. Artek is certainly doing some of the job, but they've got their increased resistance, which is definitely problematic because of some of the other champions they do have here. And this is why I think I like the other team a lot better. The other team mostly gets rid of these other things and makes this a little bit of an easier task for you. So again, showing the struggle here, this team is probably not built even for 25, so I might have to go down for 20 for this team. But the theory for it is pretty sound. And honestly, if Monkey and Artek are the only people keeping themselves alive and we're getting some damage out, this is, this is still not bad. We haven't died yet. And we're starting to wear down the other team as well. So as we wear down the other team, eventually what'll happen is we'll get we'll get a chance to revive some of these other champions because they will not be dying anywhere as fast. And once we get the other champions up, we'll be in good shape. There's the stealing. So the accuracy-wise, this is doing okay. But again, this team, not as good, so I'm not as much of a fan of it. So I'm going to let this skip to the end, and hopefully I'll be showing you a success screen. I'll be right back. All right, that actually wasn't too long. So 2 minutes and 40 seconds. We got through stage 25. Still got some decent gear. And, well, not that Day Set is a particularly good piece of gear, but we got some gear. We got some accessories. Accessories are always good with this. So, again, this is a viable team, especially if you're going to struggle to build some of these other teams. This is definitely more of a tank and go team, so it will definitely take a little bit longer. It's not going to be a super fast team, but it is definitely buildable if you've got the stats. And if you don't have the stats, well, you just farm a little bit lower. Is this dungeon still going to be worth farming at lower? Well, even at 20, you're going to get some 6-star gear. So farming this at 20 is still decent. Farming it at 25 is the equivalent of hard or not regular dungeons. And stage 30 is really kind of your hard 5 or your hard 10 level of dungeon farming. So hopefully this helps you guys straighten a few things out. Again, Ninja is swappable. You could certainly put in somebody like a Newt in there as well. Venus could certainly be a Lydia if you're worried about that. That may even help you stay alive a little bit longer with the Strengthen. You could certainly swap out another support. You could use an Elva instead of Ancora. So there's a lot of flexibility with this team as well. But that's 2 different teams to help you, try to fight Odin. So hopefully they are helpful. Hopefully you kind of get the concept of what we're working in. I'm sure there's going to be other teams out there. I'm sure there's other teams out there, and I'm sure other content creators will put some other videos out there with some great stuff as well. But this is what I came up with. Thanks definitely to Boozer for the one team that he gave out there, and my community for making me aware of that. So I definitely appreciate that. Go check him out. He's a great content creator. And until the next time, I'm Bront CatHerder.